Um, Perfect. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to give an overview of all the things that we have discussed so far in the various office hours so that you're in the best place possible for tomorrow's Datathon. We also have Eja from the FAO team who is here to answer all the queries about the data set. And if there are any things that she cannot answer immediately, she will get back to you over the next 24 hours. And of course, we are all available via Discord. So I'll be sharing all of that information as well. Um, Reminder, of course, this has been the series that we have all been doing so far. And we have done various sessions and all the recordings are now available on the wiki. So if you have missed anything, you can simply go to the wiki and the Oblivious office hours, and all the recordings from our previous sessions are available there now. I also want to quickly share the key important links for you in one place. So I have put these in the slide, and because the slide link is also available, it will be in the wiki. We will share it in Discord. So the main things that you need are to access the data. I've put the link here to the anti-granular website location where the FAO data set will be available for you to access securely. The competition page, I've also put the link for that here. The instructions for logging into the environment, that we have put a YouTube video link here, so you can easily go and follow that instruction, and it will help you to connect to the secure server. Everybody will also be receiving their sign-in email today at some point, and that will make sure that you are allocated to the right team in the Datathon. And if there are any issues with that, you can, of course, email us. Then there are extensive instructions available on the UN Wiki, and I have highlighted two important parts of the wiki here in the doc. One is the
Bang,
kind of,
jawaban aku nggak dapet.
sorry,
Jangan bilang soalnya permutasi.
I'm going to mute everyone. Basically, the wiki has two important places. One in the wiki is the getting started place, which has all the instructions on how do you connect to the various libraries, the various tools, AWS, Esri, every detail is there. The instructions for the pets challenge are also on that main page. The second most important part of the wiki is where the FAO datasets instructions are located as well. And if you go in dataset and then you go in the International Statistics Institute's dataset, then there you have the FAO data in emergencies hub. That's the dataset for the PETS track. And this has all the information about the dataset, including some dashboards you can have a look at. A really important thing to familiarize yourself with is in the essential resources to understand this data, there is a field description table which has all the column names. So this data is really, really large. It has over 350 columns. So it would be worth you having a look at which columns are most relevant to the problem that you are trying to solve. Because if you try to load the whole data set, I think the environment will stall. So you need to pick and choose which columns of the data set you want to load in so that you can work faster with your Python scripts. Then the final section here, which is really also very important, is that the DM research team has shared what are the kind of themes and research area that are really interesting for them. And Edger will also hopefully give more color to this in a minute. But these themes are really like, I think if you're doing a pet track challenge, you should be focusing your project on these three themes. And we will hopefully ask more questions around that. Then if you need help, we are obviously all available by two Discord channels. One is the UN Datathon Discord channel, and the other is the Oblivious Discord channel. So all throughout the weekend, we will be available through those Discord channels as well. So without a lot, I will give a refresher of the concepts later, but I want to maybe start by talking to Eja about this data set and where does it come from, a little bit of a refresher, and we can do a few questions, and then you guys can also jump in and ask your questions about the data set. So yeah, I'll keen to talk to you, Eja. So if you could start by sharing some thoughts on what is this data, what does your team do, and yeah, let's start from there.
Thank you, Ivy. So data in emergencies is like an information system, let's say, where we collect data from 30 different countries, which are like, let's say, more fragile. And by the way, sorry for the background noise. So this data, we're collecting this data like for several rounds in a year per country. The frequency differs from country to country, but usually like around 3 rounds we have per year. So yeah, as I said, basically we are interviewing households to collect information about the income, about their income, the shocks they are facing, and also like there is another module like about crop production. There we are asking some questions about the difficulties they are encountering during crop production and the severity of these difficulties. Same for livestock production. And then we have another like section of a questionnaire where we collect data about food security. There are several food security indicators that we derived by using these information that collected from the countries, which are like FIES, Food Insecurity Experience Scale. Then there is Household Dietary Diversity Score, LCSI. And you can find more detailed information about all of these things on the Wikipedia. And then we have another section about need for assistance. And there we ask the needs of the household and if they received any needs, if they are happy that they received assistance, and these kind of questions.
Okay, that's really interesting. And well, my question would be, so why do you collect this data? Because of course it's a very large scale effort and it's a very big data set. So what are the important things that you are trying to answer by collecting this data?
So the aim is actually informing the decision makers in support of agricultural livelihoods in fragile and shock-prone environments to detect better the food insecure households, but like mainly informing the decision makers.
Got it.
For targeting the support.
And this is basically across multiple countries would be these decision makers who will then use this data to understand which policies to use for impacting the households that have the most danger of food scarcity. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Got it. And so in terms of collecting this data set, of course, we have so many columns. Do the columns correlate to the questions that are being asked? And that's the kind of enumeration of the data set across so many columns?
Yes, each column is coming from a question, but there are also select all that apply type of questions. So there you can find like 10 columns derived from a single question.
Right, got it. And so, yeah, please go ahead.
And there are, you will find other columns which are like final FIES score or final FIES probabilities. These are not coming from the questions directly, but calculated by using the specific questions. And you will find again like this detailed information on the field description table.
Got it. So it seems like for the participants, there are a few different types of columns in the data. Some columns which are kind of identifiers. Okay, this is the country, this is the kind of household. Then there are the answers to the questionnaires themselves, potentially also dates when the questionnaire is being asked, and then the answers to the questionnaires themselves. Then finally, some processed fields which are based on the answers themselves, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And so, Echa, like I would love to discuss a little bit because the hackathon participants only have 3 days to explore this data set. And of course, this data set has, if I understand correctly, it has 30 different countries or more. And there are obviously certain themes that have been shown here as well. So could you talk a little bit more about what should the participants be focusing on to really answer some of these themes and where these come from?
So looking at the first point, it's like focusing on more shocks and coping strategies. So like, for example, for this one, I would suggest using the shocks relate. There is like a question where we ask the shocks the household encountered like in the recent months. So that would give an information about the basically the shocks they are facing. And then there is this another section where we ask like several questions on coping strategies. And then we have like the final scores of these coping strategies, which is called LCSI. So these parts of the data set should be focused for the first point.
Just on the first point, can you give examples of what are shocks? What is counted as shocks and what is counted as coping strategies, for example?
So, for example, for like shocks can be natural disasters such as floods, or it can be, I have to check the different like the options, but it can be man-made hazards as well. So these kind of things are shocks. And for coping strategies are basically like the how household is handling the situation. So it can be, so for example, begging is one of the coping strategies, and like help asking for money is another coping strategies, for example. And this changes by country to country. So there are fixed questions, but like countries are selecting the most relevant ones on the questionnaire that they will use.
Got it. Okay. And let's then go to the second theme here, and you can talk a little bit more about the second theme, please.
So just, I need to refresh my mind as well. So refresh my mind
Sure.
as well, sorry.
And obviously, people who are the participants who we have on the call, if there are any particular things you want to clarify or ask, please just raise your hand at any point or type your question and we will get that answered. Because of course, this is the first time we are fully seeing and exploring the data set. And of course, we have an expert on the call right now, right here. So please make best use of this time.
So I would say also at the second point, you can use the shocks and coping strategy questions as well. But I can also check with our data analysts and then provide you more detailed information later on this one as well. But mainly
Right.
shocks and coping strategies, yes.
Got it. Okay. And then about, so far the first two are about shocks and coping strategies more broadly. It seems that the third one is specifically how these shocks and coping strategies impact food choices and food security. interaction. So it's like a third factor has been introduced in this theme. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about what this theme is about, and maybe some examples of what this means.
So in this question, there are other variables that can be included, which are like mainly measures based on experiences of food insecurity, which are FIES, Food Insecurity Experience Scale, and then Household Hunger Score. Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are the variables like can be considered while handling this third point.
And in terms of the good examples of some of the questions that are useful or interesting for the FAO team and the team that collects this data from emergencies, what would be some examples of useful insights that you guys look for from this data?
That's a good question. So maybe again, it's better. I mean, I have to give a thought about it, and then maybe it's better also for like that. I can discuss it with our analysts and come back with my more concrete answer.
No, absolutely. And maybe just the reason for asking the question is because, of course, the participants who are coming on the privacy enhancing technologies track, they will not be able to see the row by row data. So my thinking is that, for example, if they could start looking at trends across countries, that, okay, like countries of this region maybe have similar coping strategies like country of this other region, or when the same shock happens in this region, actually these two countries that are even maybe close by to each other have very different coping strategies, and they can then enumerate some of those informations to show some kind of map or some kind of understanding based on the data that have available. And I'm just wondering if that is something meaningful, or should the participants be, thinking very differently about this data?
Yeah, when analyzing this data, there's two ways to actually handle this. You can check for like the data for a single country and see what's the trend in a single country. And then there is like a multi-country analysis. As you said, it's like an interesting to see how different countries are handling different impacts of the shocks they're facing. So both ways are actually interesting for us.
That's really interesting. So in terms of a single country analysis, what kind of things are important or interesting to keep in mind for single country analysis?
Yeah, so it could be interesting to see like the the impact of the shocks like on different household types, such example like crop producers, livestock producers, and how they like use the coping strategies on these, and how food security situation affected by these shocks on like by time, and how like the relation in between the coping strategies and the food security indicators would be an interesting thing as well.
Got it. So that's really interesting. So then maybe a new insight that emerges from what you have said is that participants need to think of the data across actually two axes. One is the country axis, and the other is the household type axis. And across those two axes, people can start thinking, okay, let me look at a single country or multiple countries. And looking at the country, then you can further think that by household type, how are different households reacting to similar shocks, or does the shock even is the shock different by household types, and therefore are the coping strategies different by household type? And similarly, across multiple countries, they can also do comparisons of household types, of shock types, of coping strategy types.
Yeah, indeed.
Got it. Okay, that is super interesting. And are there other ways of thinking or cutting the data? Because we have identified, okay, household type, shock type, coping strategy type, and countries are four main ways in which you could potentially think of the data. Are there other axes or categories you would think of the data as?
Maybe when you're handling a data on the country level, you can check the differences between the administrative levels. And the representativeness of these administrative level changes by country. So for some countries, data is representative at admin 1 level. For the others, it can be on admin 2 level. So it could be
What is an
interesting to see.
administrative level?
What I mean is like provinces or districts, depending on the country. It's like the regions of the country. So, for example, if you check our dashboards, you can see there, like on the maps, you can see the differences in between the provinces of a country.
Right. Okay. So, for example, if I go to actually maybe I go to Pakistan, and so here you are saying that we will be able to see some more administrative level information actually in this dashboard. Okay, so that's interesting as well. Yeah, maybe once the dashboard loads, you can tell us a little bit more about like when participants explore these dashboards, what kind of things maybe they can think through or learn. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit through this dashboard, that would be really helpful.
Okay, so this, dashboard starts with the indicators page. This page just give a general idea about the at the country level, about the most important variables. So here you can see, like for example, for shock, like 82% of the households reported a shock, and there are different type of shocks. For this country, for this round, the most frequent shock is the higher food prices. Or you can go and check like have the situation of the seed access. So like as you can see, for the last 3 months, 39 of the households reported difficulties on accessing enough seeds. And we can even go in further detail and like the search for the main problem, and that's like the accessing good quality of the seeds, for example. And then there are like different thematic areas on the dashboards. If you just scroll up a bit, up. So thank you. There you can see like there is 5 different dedicated dashboards for income and shocks, crop, livestock, food security, and needs for assistance. And if we go them, you can see like widgets showing the different indicators, and also there are maps. Here you can see both country level information or like admin 1 or admin 2 level information, depending on the country again. And you will have like small key highlights about the country as well.
Got it. And so this dashboard is an explorable dashboard where we can pick certain filters and explore the data a bit more.
Exactly. And here, as you can see, at the right top of the dashboard, you can filter the data on admin level or household type.
Right.
Yeah. So it's downloading, but
right. So we can pick the different admin levels or even cities, etc. And then we can pick various household types as well. And then
maybe what I can say is admin units is filtering the map and the widgets, but household type is only filtering the widgets.
Right.
So for example, here you can see differences in between different like admin units as well. and this is about main source of income, drop in main source of income.
So what should I pick? Like, should I pick a certain region here to explore this data here? Like if I select Badin, maybe that takes me there. It tells me how many households were surveyed there. And then this I can also see other things. What was their main source of income? And that also tells me various explorations about the data. And so I can see many household level statistics here. I can also see various indicators here at various levels, and then I can further filter, I suppose, by the several household types as well. And is that correct? What I'm exploring is that.
Exactly. And if you click on the map, like for one admin areas, you will
Yeah.
you will have more information on that specific area as well.
Got it. So basically, I can click the map, and then that shows me all this other information to help me understand the region a little bit more, and etc. Is that
And
correct?
exactly, and it's possible to see different layers of map if you click on the icon on the right top of the map. Here
Right.
you can see different layers.
Right. Okay. So I can basically see the different coloring of the households. I can basically see the map kind of uh, being colored to highlight. So it seems that, for example, Chari has unusually high fuel prices, and all that is explained here as well. Um, got it. So
Exactly.
basically, then that becomes a really good way. And so then the other dashboards as well, and we can select the various rounds. So we can select across years, it seems, as well for the data set.
Exactly. And the data set we shared is mostly from like after December 2022. But yeah, you can see different rounds of the countries as well. So saying that on the data set you would find like a single country for some of the single round for some of the countries. So maybe like a trend analysis for a single country might not be possible for some of them. For Yemen, we have so many rounds. For Sierra Leone, I think we have 2 rounds, but you will see there like a country with a single round as well. So that should be noted. And for example, for Guatemala, there is just 1 round, so it's not possible to like see the trend for that specific country.
Right. And in terms of the other parts of the dashboard as well, there are kind of crop related dashboards, livestock, food security outcomes. All of that basically will have a similar exploratory dashboard to what we just saw as well, correct?
Exactly. On crop and livestock dashboards, you wouldn't find the household type filter because it's already filtered for crop producers or livestock producers, but all the other things are same. It's like you can find a map, widgets, and can be filtered by the admin units.
Right, got it. And so just a question here, it basically also says you download the data. So if I download the survey data, will this be different than what I'm getting in the secure enclave data?
No, it's basically the same, but you won't be for example, if you click on it, you will ask for credentials. You can access the data only if you have an account, and we check the requests and then provide access. But once we provide access, then the data is the same.
So this would be for internal agencies and relevant persons, but hackathon participants will not be able to download it from here.
Yeah.
Got it. And then the other question around some of these other tabs, so food security outcomes and need for assistance, because we have team number 3, which is around food security outcomes. Is there anything specific that participants can already explore on this tab on the dashboard that would be useful for them to get a bit more stronger understanding?
Yeah, I suggest to check the widgets and also the pop-ups which are explaining all different kind of information. But for example, here on this dashboard, you can find the final FIAS probabilities, which shows the households, the percentage of households in severe food insecurity or moderate or severe food insecurity. So it could be good to check and understand what kind of variables you can find.
Right. I will quickly pause there for a second. Participants who are on the call, like, do you want to ask any clarifying questions on the dashboards we are looking at on how to explore the data before you even start coding? Because this is all already available. You can actually right now start doing this type of exploration. Okay. Yeah, Raj, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was curious. So all the countries that are shown, like that's the kind of the restriction for this data set to be used, right? Like in terms of for the pet track, like this is the restriction for the pet track. Like these are the countries that are available for us to use if you want to work with the pet track, right?
Yes, this is the subset of the data that is available. Correct,
Oh,
AJ?
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. And the theme would be on food security, right?
So there are 3 themes. Basically, the shocks and response, and then basically what kind of coping strategies do different households use to respond to those shocks. And then finally, depending on the shocks and the coping strategies used, how is food security impacted? And you can choose a different question altogether. These are the kind of suggestions from the team that they are really, really interested in these 3 main points, and any insights that you can give to the team from these points, they would find really, really interesting to explore and understand. Because of course you can see in the dashboards that the team already does a lot of data analysis and releases a lot of that data analysis. But of course, there are many other ways of understanding the different trends in the data set. You can do kind of cross-country comparisons in the data set, because in the data set, you can see that there are potentially similar countries in terms of either geographic region or the majority type of kind of production, because some countries may be more livestock forward, some countries may be more crop forward, and you can compare and contrast across a few of those countries. You can say these 5 countries are all very livestock forward, but when they receive a shock, they behave in a very different way. And that would make for a very interesting insight to be generated from the data, for example.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
And I strongly suggest that if you can check the sources, like there is like a presentation on food security indicators. So that could provide you an idea about what to consider. And it would be good to check that one, because then when you're looking at the data set, it will give you more information about that. And then also I suggest you to check the template questionnaires and field description files to understand the structure a bit.
Any other questions from the participants on the data set so far? I wonder if we have any participants on the call actually who are coming from some of these countries, and maybe there is an interest to find out more about specific country level information and how it compares and contrasts with other countries as well. So then quick, perhaps a refresher that the FOW data set itself, the granular data, will be available to you once the hackathon starts, and you will be able to go to antigranular.com and you will go in datasets, and when you are logged in with your registered ID, so the UN ID that you registered with, if you log in with that, then you will see here your the FOW data set at the beginning of the hackathon. And similarly, in the competitions page, you will also then see a competition pop up here for the UN Datathon Pets track, and that will give you all the relevant detail. I'll just show you what kind of things you'll see. It will give you more details or links to the data. It will tell you kind of how to get started and stuff. So all this information will be available once the hackathon starts. And if you kind of want more information about understanding that how the data looks and how the data, what kind of fields it has, you should go to the wiki page and you should go through and look at some of these indicators that are mentioned at the bottom of the page as well. And as well, there is the kind of all the guide here as well. And I think like actually the first two ones, I would really say that these are critical for you to see and understand, because as I mentioned, there are 355 rows in the data. And so you might be very lost if you do not have some preparation beforehand. And then finally, while we are on the topic of the data, you can also start going and looking at the videos on linking to the server and understanding how you explore the data, how you join the data set. The video for the joining the data set will go up as well today, what we discussed yesterday, because as you can see that potentially this data set is very cool for joining between different countries. You can do data joins and stuff as well. Quick pause there. Any thoughts from the participants? What are you guys thinking of? You can obviously share what kind of project or prospect you are thinking of working on during the Datathon, and you can get some direct feedback from myself, from Ece, from other participants on the call as well. Okay, chat is open. You can raise your hand whenever you want. Ece, I will then now give a bit of a refresher on some of the things we have discussed. If you kindly stay on the call in case any other questions pop up, that would be extremely valuable. I will quickly give a bit of an overview again of the privacy enhancing technologies track and some of the concepts that the participants should be thinking of over the next few days.
Of course. Before you start, can I add one last thing?
Please go ahead.
Because when we were talking about the three topics and like the possible interesting questions and inferences that we can be like and get interested, maybe looking at the highlights section on the dashboards might give an idea about what could be an interesting information. You can see it like from here on the dashboard. There is methodology and key highlights. They're really short information, but these are the most important points, the conclusions that we would like to brief people. So these could give an idea what could be an interesting study, let's say. That's all. Thank you.
Interesting. So in highlights, each of these tabs would have a similar highlights, would you say?
Exactly.
Got it. And so participants ideally can go and even try to recreate or surpass some of these type of highlights.
Exactly. And for example, for this country, it's very brief, but you will see like a more information for other countries as well. So I suggest to check and see maybe what can be done with the data set.
Okay, that's super useful because I think that gives a very concrete idea to the participants. So, for example, if we look at Nigeria as another comparison and just quickly explore, I haven't obviously explored this before, but I'm very keen to see what kind of highlights there are because that already gives a bit of an example of what your solution needs to look like. So, in a way, it's a very useful direction and it
Yeah.
becomes an open book exam a little bit. Amazing. And so if we go, for example, incomes and shocks,
Mhm.
and in this data, am I in the correct country at the moment?
I
Think
think
we did
so.
fine.
Yeah, it's Nigeria. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So here we see a lot of key highlights in that. And so actually that sounds like, so if, for example, I was to go and start exploring this data, these are the highlights that maybe I should first try to recreate. And if I can recreate them from the data, then already I'm in a good place because I know that it's a sanity check that my algorithms and everything is working fine. And then I can take it one step further.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Yeah, this is super helpful. And so, yeah, guys, please keep an eye out for this and you can start exploring and making a list of some of the highlights you would like to recreate. Then Ajay, is it okay then? Should I go for the refresher? Any
Yeah.
other thoughts?
No. Thank you.
Awesome. So, guys, we discussed yesterday to give a refresher on what are privacy enhancing technologies. I will briefly run you through that again, and then we will touch base on some of the libraries we have discussed and the data joining part. If you at any point feel you want more clarification on some other concept that I'm not covering, please also just ping in the chat and I will just give you a summary of that as well. So, to get started, as you remember that when you have normal data and you are working in a usual data science pipeline, you can directly interact with the data. You can use your normal pandas libraries and stuff like that to work on the data, manipulate the data, etc. But when a data is really, really sensitive, when it is some kind of information that cannot be made public, for example, it could be the HIV status of certain patients, or it could be whether certain people have a criminal conviction, or it is just a very non-public information about a company's finances. There are many types of private data sets that exist, which on an aggregate level should be fine for the public, but in an individual level, we do not want that information out there. So that type of data can still be shared with data scientists, but in a secured format. And that type of technologies which enable this kind of interaction with very important private data are called privacy enhancing technologies. And one form of doing that is putting the data in a secured enclave. And that is the technology we are using in the Datathon, that the data from the FAO team has been put in a secure enclave. Now, when the data is in the secure enclave, you can no longer interact with as a usual data scientist. Now you need some special techniques to come into the picture. To deal with this type of data, now you need special privacy algorithms to interact with the data, to run queries on it, to do special operations on it. And by doing that, you become the responsible data scientist. But now the question becomes, we have this lens to interact with the data, but what is the cost of this lens and what type of lens can we use to look into the data? Because of course, this lens now imposes some limitations on you on how much granularity you can get from the data. So that really depends on what level of details you are looking to see in the data set. And different levels of details come at a different privacy cost. And so the more, and that kind of concept of privacy cost is called as epsilon. The more detail you want, the more privacy it costs. So when you obviously when you take away more privacy from the data, then you can see more clarity, and that's sort of the privacy cost of the exploring the data set. And so teams will usually limit they will put upper bounds on how much you can do. So this type of clarity, of course, then there is no point to put the data in the secure enclave. So the team will put some upper bound or threshold in how much privacy budget you have at your disposal. So they might say, hey, you can only get the data up to this clarity at maximum. You cannot go beyond this. And so now the question becomes, when you have to do data operations, how do you decide how much epsilon is right for which type of query or data manipulation? And that really then depends on the kind of question you're trying to ask from the data. And the more complex query you are asking of the data, the more privacy budget you will need to spend for that. So for example, this example of the more and more a clearer picture of cars, some basic questions you can ask even in a very blurry picture. And this blurry picture does not cost you a lot of privacy. It's a very private picture. Nothing is being given away, so it doesn't cost a lot of privacy budget. You don't need to use a lot of epsilon. And you can see, you can ask basic questions. Is it day or night? Is there some animal in the picture? And various like high level broad questions you can ask. Is there a sky in this picture? Are there some clouds in the sky? You can ask simple broad questions already. Now, when you want to have a bit more look into the picture, then you need to spend more privacy budget. Now you need to pay a little bit more in removing the privacy. And so by removing this level of privacy, you can ask some more detailed questions. You can say, how many cars are in this data set? You can ask specifics about those cars. And then the kind of when there is complete removal of privacy, you can ask very, very private questions like, is there some specific person in this picture? And this is really the danger zone which teams don't want, because you obviously don't want to find out, hey, I'm the data scientist. Oh, I just found out my neighbor has HIV. And maybe the neighbor doesn't want you to know that. So this kind of information is usually not available for data scientists to deal with, because at the end of the day, data scientists are also human, and we don't want them to have a revelation of kind of very private details of anybody. And so the rule of thumb when dealing with the data is that for basic summary statistics, basic operations, averages, ranges, etc., you don't need a lot of epsilon. You can use small values, 0.1, 1 at maximum. But when you do really like advanced stuff, machine learning algorithms, model fitting, model training, data joining, that's when you will need to spend more privacy budget. So you may spend like 5, 10, 15 even epsilon. But you have to constantly be aware of how much epsilon you're spending, because if you spend the epsilon of the whole team, that's done. The whole team now cannot use the data anymore because they've run out of the privacy budget. So the main thing to remember is whenever you need to deal with the data in the secure enclave, you do percentage AG, you give some commands and instructions, and then you specify what level of privacy budget you're going to use with those instructions. And once that happens in the secure enclave, you can export the results back into your local environment. And then you don't need to spend any more privacy budget on the exported variables. They're already in your pocket. You don't have to pay anything to use them. And when we say pay, we are talking about privacy budget, not money. And so main takeaway, whenever you want to do something on the secure enclave, on the secure data set, you need to think percentage AG. That's it. You do that, that's a secure enclave. Everything gets taken care of in the backend, and you can get the summary results and things out in your local environment. And at each step, I would encourage you to keep track of your privacy spend. So if you want to know how much epsilon you have remaining, you just do this session privacy odometer. It will tell you how much epsilon you have already spent. And then you will know, okay, how far am I from the privacy threshold? So that was a summary of these main concepts that we have discussed together. The other two main important notebooks that we also recently covered in our sessions are here in anti-granular. You can go to notebooks. The ones that we have recently discussed gave you an overview of logistic regression, classification, linking the data set, so the record linkage and the ST-link libraries we did recently. And basically, we also did the various classification models, hypothesis testing as well. So you can have a look at those various libraries to really get a feel for how to do data joining, how to do various operations that you are very familiar with as data scientists. And it's not actually a massive difference to what you already do. You just replace some, pandas with OP pandas. You do replace a data frame with a private data frame. Very minor tweaks, and then you are already doing private data science. So I'll briefly pause there. We are also coming close to our time, 5 minutes. So if you have any questions of me, of Ajay, now would be the time, because from tomorrow you are in the middle of the hackathon, and we are obviously going to still help you on Discord and everything. But yeah, then you are on the clock. Yeah, so please go ahead, raise your hands or put your questions in the chat. Okay, we have a question in the chat. So in terms of the privacy budget, is it correct to think that less epsilon will introduce some kind of noise to the data? If it is, how does it affect tabular data? Will it introduce missing values? Yes, so that's really good question. So yes, so when you use a lower amount of privacy budget, there is sort of more noise in the data. So this is an example of a data set which has used lower privacy budget. This is how the data set will look to you with higher epsilon spend. And so, yeah, the noise is introduced into it to preserve the privacy. It won't introduce missing values, but it may, remove values. It may, change the count of the thing that you have queried, so that you are never getting the full data set, full picture. You're getting some noise added onto the answer. So for example, if you ask it, what is the mean of this column? And maybe the true mean is, let's say it's 5. But based on the noise level you have asked, it may tell you the mean is 5.6, or it may tell you the mean is 4.9. And that uses up some privacy budget and it adds some noise. Now, the next question you asked is the privacy budget refreshed for every session? So the privacy budget usually is session specific. And so in this hackathon, your whole team will have one privacy budget, one wallet for the 3 days. So you will have an upper threshold and your whole team has to share it. So whether you are 5 people or whether you are 3 people, you will still get the same budget. And so you have to split it among yourselves or decide how you're going to use it. And so that also means even if one team member makes like bad mistake and they spend like 100 epsilon in the first question, okay, that's done. We can't give you more privacy budget. So that's, yeah. Any other questions, please pop them in the chat. Okay, so as we come to the final moments of the office hours, here is a reminder. I'll share the link to the slides here in your chat as well, in case somebody wants to go immediately and check out all these resources. To start the hackathon, you'll get emails about your sign-in IDs. Please check that in your junk folder if it goes there. You will be able to access the data set on the Entrepreneur website when the hackathon starts. Right now, it won't be there. Then you can actually already start testing out logging into the environment, because there are so many sandboxes, so many videos, so many hackathons data set on the website already. And so you can already have a look at all of those. You can check out this video to tell you about the logging environment. Please have a look at the UN Wiki, at the FAO dataset, at the different dashboards that Ajay also just pointed out, and especially look at the key highlights part of the dashboard. So please, when you go on the wiki and you go to the FAO Data in Emergencies Hub in this section of the datasets, in datasets in International Statistics Institute, there is the FAO Data in Emergencies Hub. There you have the links to all the dashboards that are in the dataset. And when you click on those dashboards, as AJ said, you can explore 5 major subtypes. So you have the overview indicators, and you can explore 5 subtypes. And each of those subtypes has key highlights for you. And so these are the kind of highlights that the FAO team would really be interested in getting from Datathon participants, whether they can kind of add to it or contribute to them. And that is also reflected in the theme we have here on the FAO page in the wiki, that there are 3 themes. And the 3 themes they are very interested in are, what are the kind of shock and coping strategies that different households experience, and then what are the impacts on food securities of those shocks and coping strategies. And then finally, if you need help at any point, we will be available through the Oblivious Discord as well as the UN Datathon Discord. And so you are very welcome to come join us and ask those questions there. I'll stop there. Any final thoughts, any final questions from anybody? Please do go forward and raise your hand or put them in the chat. Yeah, so if there's some time left, I have a question for the FAO data. Is there any specific reason why there isn't any data on some countries? I'm thinking maybe there is a priority, or maybe these are the only countries considered as having a food security issue. Ajay, if you are still here, can you please? Yes.
Yes, here I am. Yeah, I mean, the main reason is actually we're focusing mostly on the countries which are having a food security issue. Yeah, most fragile countries, let's say.
Great, very helpful. Any further questions, guys? Well, if there's nothing else, I wish you all a fantastic Datathon. I hope that you will all have a very good experience. You'll learn a lot. You will learn new things, and hopefully you will be able to take the new things that you have learned into your future project, and hopefully you will create more and more interesting insights. And obviously, I want you to become responsible data scientists. So please go try out Private Python, and then you can see how you can also find insights from data without impacting the privacy of individuals or institutions. And that's all from me. It has been really fun talking to all of you through the office hours. And yeah, best of luck, and hope you all win prizes.